Intel vs AMD Season 1 Episode 7. Previously we had a look at the AMD Athlon 64, 3200 Plus and 3400 Plus with the mighty Clawhammer core. The Athlon 64 turned out to be a very fast and efficient processor. 1MB of level 2 cache, an integrated memory controller and much faster performance clock for clock put immense pressure on Intel. The Athlon 64 3400 Plus launched in January of 2004. Intel did everything in their power to fight off the threat and launched 3 major processors in the following month. The Pentium 4 3.4 GHz with the classic Northwood core, another 3.4 GHz model with a brand new Prescott core, and also a 3.4 GHz version of the Pentium 4 Extreme Edition. We looked at the 3.4 GHz Northwood core in the previous video, link down below in the description. Today it's all about the Prescott core, and in the next video we will look at the 3.4 GHz version of the Pentium 4 Extreme Edition. The Prescott core was the first chip manufactured on a 90nm process. With 1MB of level 2 cache, it had double the amount compared to the Northwood core. It also supported the new SSE3 instruction set. A deeper pipeline was used in the hope to scale clock speed to 4 GHz and beyond. Despite the smaller manufacturing process, the Prescott core ended up consuming more power compared to Northwood and also the Extreme Edition. Here we can see how the TDP compares amongst these processors. While not directly comparable, the Athlon 64 processors have a TDP of 89 watts, although later revisions reduced this figure even further. The Prescott core, however, is also more resilient to temperatures, giving you a little bit of extra headroom before the processor would start to throttle. Interesting to see that the Extreme Edition has the lowest maximum T case, so you definitely want to have a decent cooler with this processor. So how does the Prescott perform, and should you consider using it in your retro gaming PC? Let's start looking at some benchmark results. For this video I retested the 3.4 GHz Northwood and Prescott chips and recorded the results of 3 benchmark runs. This just gives us a clearer picture of what's going on because there are small variations between benchmark runs. In 3D Mark 2001, the Athlon 64s are the stronger processor. The 3400 Plus is the fastest processor, and even the 3200 Plus is in front of the Prescott. Only the Extreme Edition is able to secure a small lead against the 3200 Plus, but is no match for the 3400 Plus. In this benchmark, the Prescott core performs better compared to Northwood. In 3D Mark 03, the Pentium 4 processors in general perform better. All the 3.4 GHz versions are in front of the Athlon 64 3400 Plus. Once again we can see that the Prescott core performs better than Northwood. In Aquamark, the Pentium 4 processors do really well. Between the Prescott and Northwood it is very close, but the Prescott is slightly faster than Northwood in this benchmark. The Code Creatures Pro benchmark is dominated by the Athlon 64. Both chips, the 3400 Plus and the 3200 Plus, are clearly faster than all of the Pentium 4 processors. The Prescott core once again is a little bit faster compared to Northwood. In Serious Sam's second encounter, all processors provide plenty of performance, but it is clear that the Athlon 64 chips are significantly stronger compared to the Pentium 4 chips. Only the Extreme Edition is able to match the 3200 Plus, but is no match against the 3400 Plus. Once again, Prescott is slightly ahead of Northwood. In X2 The Threat, the Athlon 64 is once again very strong, and only the Extreme Edition can keep up. Also in this benchmark, the Prescott is a tiny bit faster than Northwood. Comanche 4 gives some interesting results. Here the Athlon 64 processors are not as dominant as in the other games, but the performance is still very competitive against the Pentium 4 processors. However, the Extreme Edition is taking the lead this time. Also interesting to see is that in this game, the Prescott performs worse than Northwood. It will be interesting to see if there are any other games that show the same behavior. In Doom 3, once again the Athlon 64 processors do very well. The 3400 Plus is the fastest processor and the 3200 Plus is not far behind. Very interesting to see that the Prescott manages to not only beat Northwood, but also the Extreme Edition. In Far Cry the trend continues and the Athlon 64 processors are leading the pack. The 3400 Plus is the fastest processor. The Extreme Edition and the Prescott managed to beat the 3200 Plus, but cannot beat the 3400 Plus. And once again we can see the Prescott being in front of Northwood. In F.E.A.R I have now started to record the minimum FPS as well, but I didn't do that previously, so I only have results for the Northwood and Prescott. There's quite a difference between the two cores. The Prescott is clearly faster in this game. Looking at the average frame rates, we can also see the performance lead of Prescott. Both Athlon 64 processors are handling this game very well, matching the performance of the Extreme Edition. And the new entry is HL2 Lost Coast. Just like with the minimum FPS results in F.E.A.R, I've only got results for the Northwood and Prescott. The trend continues, and we can see that Prescott is ahead of Northwood once again. Alright, so we had a look at all the benchmark results, and I must say I'm positively surprised by the performance of Prescott. In forums I often read that Prescott was slower compared to Northwood, but at least in the games and benchmarks I used, this clearly isn't the case. The only exception is Comanche 4, but in all the other tests the Prescott core was definitely faster than Northwood. But then we have to consider the increasing power draw. Quite odd considering that Prescott is made with a smaller manufacturing process, 90 nanometers with the Prescott compared to 130 nanometer with Northwood. Usually going with a smaller manufacturing process gives you a reduction in power draw, but with the Prescott the opposite is true. What this means is if you use such a processor, you are really running the motherboard at the limit of what it can handle. Because Prescott came out quite late, you should do a little bit of research and find out if your motherboard officially supports this processor and is able to handle the higher power demand. Against the Athlon 64 3400 Plus, the Prescott is a very tough sell. Not only is the AMD processor faster, it also consumes less power, offers 64-bit compatibility, and has much better options for a decent CPU cooler. However, if you are set on building a Pentium 4 retro gaming PC, I would recommend going with the Northwood or Extreme Edition versions rather than the Prescott. And that's it for this video, guys. In the next episode we are looking at a very cool processor, the final socket 478 CPU, the Pentium 4 Extreme Edition running at 3.4 GHz. Let's find out how it stacks up against these Athlon 64 processors. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in another video.